do this. But the one that I use I've tried all different kinds. You know, I've tried Austin Osman Spare's method. You know, you can find a whole bunch of different ways. But what I use was created by the Golden Dawn, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. They came up with a sigil, and you can find. You don't have to buy the Golden Dawn book. You can buy the complete Golden Dawn manuscript that has this stuff in it. You can go on the internet and just search for Rose Cross Sigil Creator. This is what it looks like. So it's just, this is symbolic of a rose. There's a cross in the middle of it. Traditionally, these are in Hebrew, but this is the English translation. The English letters of the alphabet are just around the petals of the rose. So the way you create the sigil, and the reason that you create the sigil, number one, our subconscious, our unconscious minds does not speak in words, does not understand language. It speaks in imagery. You know, that's why, like, you dream, because that's your unconscious and your subconscious speaking to you through imagery as you dream. So what you are doing is taking a word or a concept and turning it into as simplistic an image as possible. Your conscious mind doesn't have to relate to it in any way whatsoever. Your unconscious mind will decipher the symbol as being one and the same as whatever you're trying to do with the talisman, whatever you're trying to manifest, whatever you're trying to accomplish. And you know, you'll end up coming up with something. You know, I've done tons of them. So and sometimes they're really aesthetically pleasing. You know, they're just basically like shapes. That's all they are. So the way you come up with these shapes, though, that's the important thing. What you do, and I believe I have a piece of paper around here somewhere with it on it, with a few of mine on it. Let's see what I did with it. Okay, I'll just use this one that I have here to show you, the one that I'm working with now. I will usually get a piece of tracing paper. You know, it's really fine. You can see through it. Like if you put it on things, see if you can see it on camera. If you put it on the book, you can see the sigil creator through it. Hopefully, you guys can see that, hopefully. So what you want to do is basically spell out the word that you're trying to create. And here's a whole bunch of them that I've done in the past, just for, you know, past talismans. You can see where I've done it on here. So say, for example, you're doing something for protection, and you want to break that down as simple as possible to the word protect. That's what you're wanting the energy in this talisman to do for you, to protect you. So the way you start off is you put your trace paper over the sigil creator, and you start off at the very first letter of your word, P for protect in our case. You draw, you see how all of these begin with that circle? That circle is the first letter of your word. You draw a circle. That's how you know where the beginning is. You then trace the word out. Like, you know, you would say from P, you would go to R, draw a line connecting the circle to the R, then to the O, then to the T. You spell out the whole word. Whenever you get to the end of the word, you see the little line at the bottom of the sigil. You draw that line, that tiny little line, to show this is where it terminates. This is the end of the line for the sigil. And here's the thing. The Rose Cross Sigil Creator is pretty standardly this size. That's about how big it is everywhere in every book. But once you have traced your sigil out on here, there's no reason you have to keep it that same size. All you need is the shape of it. You know, that's what's speaking to your mind. The shape, your subconscious mind is now going to identify that shape with that concept. So you can make it as big or as small as you want to. You can make a tiny little talisman and miniaturize the sigil, or you could do, you know, one of these big giant ones like I was just showing you and blow it up, make it even larger. It is entirely up to you and what you want to do with it. There are other ways of doing this, you know, and I'll just give you one example. Well, I'll show you also in this book. The book that I'm using right now, this is a book by Silver Ravenwolf called Angels, Companions in Magic. And this is another one that I've, relied on, went back to over and over ever since I was in prison. But she gives examples of other ways of drawing talismans in here. Like this is a talisman of Jupiter and a talisman of Saturn. And you can do them like this if you want to. But the main thing, what you're doing when you're doing this, all you're doing is creating, a squiggly line, an image. There's no energy in it. There's no power in it. None of that. The way you get the energy in it, the way you activate it, is, how I always talk about whenever you're doing these rituals, like when you're learning, like for example, the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, one of the reasons they wanted people to do that so much and they drilled it home over and over and over is because not only are you learning how to do those rituals, you are also learning a formula. By formula, what I mean is things that you can take out of that ritual and use in a million different ways. What I mean by that, for example, what do I do with my pen? What I do, how whenever you're doing the lesser banishing ritual, you inhale and you visualize that you are drawing in light from the entire universe around you. We never use our own energy when you're doing magic. If you use your own energy, it depletes you. You can eventually reach a point where you feel run down. You can even, feel like you've got a cold. You just feel grouchy. And it's because you're using up your own energy. You don't want to use your energy. You use energy that you take in from outside sources. And we take that in through breathing, and we direct it through visualization. Through breathing, we take in qi. That's the name for energy and ancient Chinese Taoist traditions. But what you do, how whenever you're doing the lesser banishing, you inhale and see the earth fill with light beneath your feet, and then you use the sword mudra to draw the pentagrams in all four corners? Well, that is a formula that you can use when you're creating these talismans. So for example, what you do the exact same thing, only you're sitting at a table. You're not walking around the room the way you are doing the LBRP. You're sitting at a table, feet flat on the floor, pen in hand, sigil in front of you. You inhale and you fill the entire earth up with light. As you draw the first character on your sigil, you let all of that light rush back up through you, out your hand, and into the sigil as you're drawing it. So what you can see here, like all of these characters all the way around, every single one of those is inhaling, drawing in energy, exhaling and drawing the character as you exhale, and letting the energy rush back through you, back through your hand, and into this. What you're doing when you're finished is you have put a tremendous amount of energy into this. And then you can, put even more in it in all different sorts of ways. Like you could do, if you're making a talisman for a specific planet or for a specific sphere on the tree of life, you could do like a hexagram ritual or a pentagram ritual or whatever you want to do whatever angelic invocations you want to do, the analysis of the keyword and bring the light down on it. Anything you want to do to make it more and more powerful. You want to put as much energy into these as you possibly can. You want this, basically what this is a representation of potentially hours of your time. It has taken you hours of thought, hours of breath work, hours of visualization, hours of energy. You have put it all into this talisman. The way you release it, and you can release it in several ways. The one that I favor best is by burning this. It's just like the Tibetan monks, whenever they create sand mandalas, at the end of creating this beautiful sand mandala, they disperse it, they destroy it. All of that time, all of that energy, all of that work gone like that, just by sweeping the sand away. Same thing you're doing with this. You light it on fire, let it burn. As it burns, it's releasing all of that energy that you put into it for a specific purpose. And I was talking about different ways you can do it. Another thing that I do with mine, for example, this is where the abramelin oil comes in. I've always said you keep the abramelin oil on your altar at all times so that while you're doing your rituals, it's absorbing some of the ambient energy that you're creating, that you're working with. So whenever you get ready to burn your talisman, you could just put a single drop of abramelin oil on the talisman so that it adds even more energy to it. You want to put as much energy as you possibly can into these things. These are like these are batteries. They're like portable magic. When you want to do something and you don't have 2 hours to do an entire, hexagram ritual and rose cross ritual and all that, all you need is one of these, and all of that energy that you put into it when you did have time, you can then release with the intent of accomplishing whatever it is you're wanting to accomplish, and the oil just adds even more energy to that.